talking about solutions. You're talking about somebody who's got a 3,000 foot view over the problem. That's the challenge, at least for me, that I hear.
Except if you have a speaker and after the speaker speaks, it's followed up with a
Yeah.
panel
Yeah.
who responds to what the speaker has
Mhm.
said
And it's moderated.
and it's moderated, and it says, I hear what you're saying, here's what we're doing in Baltimore Public Schools.
Let me ask you a question. Would the people in Baltimore respond to a town hall meeting on a Saturday morning?
Yeah, I actually think I think you could. I think you could, but it's all about marketing and who you want there. And the other piece is, if you're talking about a town hall meeting, a lot of folks in Baltimore can't pay to come to the town hall meeting. They can come, but they can't come with no money.
The town hall meetings are free.
Okay.
Would they come at night?
Like what we did in,
Certainly possible. Certainly possible. It depends on what you want to see as numbers, but I certainly think you could get. My guess is probably 150, 200, maybe even 300 people there
At night?
at night, Friday night.
That's more than we had 2 years ago.
And here's the thought.
Would they come over to Morgan State conference, or they come downtown to the hotel?
They have the recent big win.
I think church is probably best. Yeah, I think church is probably best.
ED versus school rep, which is a recent big win in special ed disparities.
So I think we know what we have to do. It's just a matter of getting a program, and I think Shania can do that. You just tell her what you want. Okay. And let her handle it. I think we should just do that.
So,
But we definitely don't, we can't do 2 states. We have to.
yeah, I don't think so either.
We can't do a 5-day conference.
I just don't think nobody's gonna send anybody.
That's too long.
I wouldn't be sending my staff to be out,
5 days.
5 days. I
During the
would send them out 4 days.
Right,
During testing.
right. It's true.
And
No, that's true. I agree. I've been there, done that.
Is this testing schedule, is testing every day?
I don't
That's
disagree
not
with you.
also
That's part of it.
part
Well,
four.
yeah, that's the new parking plan.
when the kids
It's a long,
Right.
have to be good.
arduous process.
I never seen, I kept asking, Dr. Johnson, well, when is the testing over? And she said, well, it just keeps going.
Yeah, it just goes.
It does.
It's all month.
Some of these places.
All
in
month
May
into May.
too?
Yeah, it's April 4th to May 27th.
So that's why we
Yeah.
have to be really careful about how we're programming this. Because we have to remember that these people are into a testing mode, and you're only gonna get X number of people to come from a school when you're into that testing
Can
mode.
you pull up, what's being tested during that time, the 21st through the 23rd?
Yeah, I actually have to go on the website from my actual home computer.
Okay, that would be helpful.
And I can get that to you guys when I get back to it.
I think we already have it.
Okay.
Ned, when you pulled up that Baltimore testing schedule, did you do a copy of it?
What is it?
When we looked at the Baltimore the state of Maryland's testing schedule
No, it
on their website?
It wasn't well, they said it wasn't official, so I didn't print it down.
Can you print one down for us? Okay. Yeah.
Now, Maryland testing goes, not Baltimore.
Maryland. Okay. Well, this morning we have planned to continue the conversation that we were having with Larry Smith yesterday on how do we, as a board, begin to look at the various aspects and components and suggestions that came from him. Which one of those resonate with us well? Which one would we like to go into deeper conversation with? So anyone that would like to react to anything that Larry has said, the floor is open. We just need to begin to go ahead and do that. I'll start off with stating that having been here and on this board since 1990, It's been through many changes. And I'm feeling very good about where you are now, extremely good about where you are. The 30th year is coming up, and it really has, I think, something to celebrate. But it's also time for the board to look for what that future needs to look like. And that means that we need to listen to the different voices that are coming from these young people, what they're actually saying. Education has changed from the time I entered in 1966. It's certainly changed. When I entered, we had all black schools, all black faculty. There's no integration of schools here. And then they finally implemented Brown versus Board of Ed in 1968. The schools were integrated, staff-wise only. That's when I could finally teach my. My degree was in social studies, but when I was hired, they didn't have a job. No one black had died at the black high school, so I couldn't teach in my area. So they told me to go over to Butler, and I took what is known as a conversion program to become a first grade teacher. So I taught first grade. And after I got my degree in elementary ed, a master's, I said, so I might as well just stay here. Then they said, oh no, we're going to integrate the schools. We're going to send you down to the high school. So then they integrated the schools with white and black faculty. And that lasted about 4 years before they actually did a integration of schools with the students. We had all white schools and all black schools. And after that, they did the busing here. One-way busing, all the black kids being bused out to the township schools. So education has shifted and changed so much over my lifetime. And today when I go in schools here, the same schools I taught in, the schools I went as a child, these schools are now all white. So it's different because this of the core of the city has been regentrified. So the black neighborhoods and the black schools that were here are now white schools, but they have titles like the Center for Inquiry, or they're semi-private public schools, because to go and send your child there, you have to have a child already there at that school, which limits who can go there. And the child has to come from the neighborhood, which means if you are no longer in that neighborhood, and the neighborhood has been redone, that only white kids are going there, and only white kids can come. It's so what you have is a private public schools all over the city now. That used to be in all black neighborhoods. That have now the price of the homes have jumped up to $300,000 and so forth. So what we have it's two things going on: regentrification of the urban core, as well as the restructuring of public schools. Those are the two things I see that are currently going on, and the issues of equity and equitable conditions that our children are currently facing, whether it's public or whether it's charter. That to me is the number one topic. And it's because it's not just happening in one city, it's happening in every urban community in the country. Not as much on the West Coast. West Coast is totally different. But the East Coast, well, you don't know.
Maybe not California.
It's not in California, but it's in Portland and it's in Seattle. But California is different.
Arizona,
Arizona, I mean, they, you know, I don't know.
Nevada.
I wouldn't be so sure, I mean, some of those Northern California cities, I'm sure the people in San Francisco,
Right.
Oakland,
Absolutely.
I'm sure they're not feeling pretty good about what's going on in those places. About what's
I
about
don't
to
hear
happen.
that from California though.
Our charter school system is totally different than what it is, for example, in Indianapolis. And I think that, or what it is in what happened in New Orleans, because the process is different. We have a Democratic governor.
It's a blue state.
It's a blue state, 100%, and we have crazy congresswomen. I mean, we have Maxine and Karen Bass and, you know, and Nancy, and so we're not having the same kind of issues in terms of charter school, the takeover of charter schools. And the charter schools there aren't proven to do well. And so, and we have the strongest union, you already said it. So there's a big fight, but Seattle, I think,
It's striking. Washington.
right,
Really?
yeah.
The challenge for me though, in this whole charter school talk, and even as it relates to Democrats and Republicans, is, and perhaps I'm just being the militant one that I typically am, which is it's like choosing between the devil and Satan. Like one's gonna stab you, one's gonna poison you. At the end of the day, the end result is still death. And so I'm not sure. Like the Democrats may be more whatever, but down the road they tend to align their policies and practices oftentimes with Republicans.
Yeah.
I mean, in our state, we're a blue state. We elected a red governor. Our unions were supposedly strong, but he is pushing charter schools, and the legislature is helping say, okay, we're gonna go to charter schools.
Wow.
So, I mean, you know, again, California may be a bit different, but what I see is, particularly for us, and this is where for me, I struggle as an African man. This system and many of these folks have never had our interests at heart. And so to me, it's more about self-preservation and creating opportunities for young people and creating systems and structures and sustainability amongst us. Because relying on systems has never been fortuitous for us.
Does your state have black-run charter schools that are doing very well?
DC used to.
Yeah, easy.
Because we do.
I mean,
But I think the comment that I was making is that that narrative is, while in some places the result is charter schools, some places the result is shutdowns.
We have shut down.
But that narrative about the gentrification, the more re-gentrification of urban communities, is everywhere.
Everywhere.
And the results
Yeah,
is
that's
the impacting result is directly on children, right? Because they, for a whole host of reasons. So while we may not see the influx of charter schools in California, there are other related issues that.
But we see shut down of schools. So we see shut down of historical black
Elementary.
schools in our community. That's what we do. Just shut them down.
And I think, and I don't know because I think I think the challenge I find when I'm out with affiliates and members talking to members directly is trying to get them to how big the picture is.
Mhm.
Right? Because we focus,
That's right.
tend to focus on what's relevant to you, which is
That's what it is.
right.
and usually when I go places, what I usually always start with is I just want to make sure that you recognize that your situation is not unique. Right? You are not in this alone.
Right, yeah.
And the challenge is getting
And I think-
people to
Understand.
That's-
just understand
Right.
the magnitude of the problem. Like what we are, I mean, the housing people we chuckle about it. I still consider myself a housing person. This has been going on for about 2015. So the direct attack and pathway to ending public, not just public education,
Public
anything
service.
public
Public services.
support
Yeah.
they've been driving a machine that starts with, I mean, you can go back, right? We could just do, so in the mid-70s into the early 80s, there was the ad campaigns about the welfare moms.
No, that was Reagan. Reagan.
But it had started. And then after that, there came the ad campaigns about the drudge of public housing, right? And what it would do. And so in each case, right, following the public relations campaign to show people how bad it was, came new policy. And then into the mid-80s and early 90s, it was, once they changed welfare, once they changed public housing policy, started tearing down housing developments all over the country, then came public, it's the last big thing.
It's the last big thing, and they've had 30 years to build a campaign to destroy it.
It's the last big thing.
And when you look at who's aligned with that campaign, Education Week, all of these publications are aligned with it. So you read,
That's why I was just going through
Yeah,
to see if they're
it's
talking
all-
about it. Mhm.
it's all in
Well,
there.
if you look at the leaders, many of the leaders are not educators. They're not born educators and groomed. They're lawyers. They're business people. They're whatever.
They're
And
making
so
a
at
foundation,
the end of the day,
foundation.
all of those folks don't have the same value of public education as someone who's actually been
Right.
part
So the
of it.
Koch brothers give a ton of money, and even though they're completely right wing, they give a ton of money in the urban ed initiative. People don't know that. So I have a good friend
Yeah.
that I don't share. She works for them,
Mhm.
and she gives away their money. So we
Well,
try
they
to
gave,
get her. She
they
knows
give money, they gave a huge sum to UNCF.
Yeah.
And as soon as they gave the money,
Which is,
the staff at UNCF was decreased and their push for black males was dropped. You better be careful what you take.
Yeah.
I agree. I think
It's politics, political science 101. If you want to control either a geographic location, a culture, or a people, you impact how the next generation is being educated, trained, housed, schooled.
Lynette.
The prime example would be look at the Native Americans
Lynette.
and the natives, the tribal schools. What was the purpose?
in terms of our
Could you
mission,
bring, do we have any
which is
copies of
around
that,
Black children.
5,000 cuts?
We don't have any more. I think black and white, so
Can you print one for me, one?
It's
this one.
Yeah, one for everybody.
It's huge.
Oh,
It is,
You have enough paper to do that?
and trying to get people to see it, right? Because nobody wants, we're all focused on our thing, our local, which is not a bad thing, but it helps when you can have this larger, when you understand the context of it. And I think that, like, with most people, when you go to them and ask them how schools are funded, they have no
I have no
idea.
idea.
Yeah, they don't know.
So they have no idea what that means then when the housing stock changes, and the value of those homes change, and the density of renters versus homeowners change, like what that actually means to the schools in their community. Like that, there's no connection to them.
I think one of the things that we, as an organization, to me, not only NAPS need to do this, as well as other Black organizations, we have an obligation to educate our own people. And we haven't done that.
Well, you used
I have
to,
an idea.
don't have
Why
immigration.
don't you invite them in, or to maybe starting on Friday evening, right, to ensure that they are there, right, to actually do that. Like, so, NOPSI, name,
They all need to come in there, right?
right?
But I don't know, but their positions are different.
All right.
And when the NAACP supports public charters, I don't know where NAPSI is. The Urban League supports everything.
We have to say, so for me to stand up and say we don't support, I cannot say we don't support charters. We have members who work in charters.
Right.
We can't, so that's why there's always this misnomer about this thing about.
But regardless, there is still in place a structure that needs to be explained to our people that you don't really, I'm not sure you really have a choice. We really need to explain to the general masses, parents and students, that living in these low-income neighborhoods, they are the target population for the charter school movement. They're the ones that the hedge funders have said we can make X number of dollars off of.
That's true.
We have a role, and that is to explain to the people that they are the target population. And we have a role to show them how much is made off of them. And what happens when they make that choice of going to a charter school, and it is a choice, that the dollars don't always, it's not the same as the same dollars you're going to get over here in this school, which may be a public school. because the authorizer in that state or of that charter school is gonna take 3% off the top. Then the people who own the charter school would take 15 to 18% off the top. So 20% of what the state gives you to educate your child is not gonna be in that charter school. Unless the state gives you some additional dollars. All of your money is in here in this charter, over here in this public school. We have an obligation to show, and we have done the study here of 47 charter schools. We have looked at them, who authorized them, and how much the authorizer made. Ball State made $20 million off of 42 schools that they chartered. And of the 42 schools, only 5 had above a C.
See,
A
part
C
of
grade.
But what Monroe
Because
just
when
said,
parents will look and
is-
say to me, charter schools keep my child safe.
it's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. Unfortunately, Black people equate charter schools with private schools.
Yeah.
And so when they're looking at a charter school, since they can't afford a regular private school, my kid is at
Right.
Bill Downhill Academy. They think it's a.
Which is a F academy.
Right, but they don't look at it like that.
But that's how you have
But
to
it's
train them though.
separate. It's
What we need to do is
This
the
narrative,
following, there's a
right?
model.
the void has been filled by people with money. The void, the absence for the union's voice in that conversation, originally around charters and vouchers, we were absent. But we got no relationship with the community, so we said nothing over time. We haven't, really, so we've actually lost that battle.
Who lost?
We lost. That was all, we had a responsibility.
Yeah.
Oh,
We,
And slept the moment.
we slept the moment, didn't think, thought it was a passing fancy,
Right.
thought it wouldn't stick, thought it wouldn't last, thought we could maintain the relationship that, so we kind of lost that, but I think the money is one part, but the idea that we have all these organizations that essentially have their attention and eye on either a specific population, in this case, Black children, or children of color, how we educate them, how that is trying to get folks lined up, because that's part of the challenge. What does COSBOC say
I
to its
just think that
members
you've
about?
got to tell, our obligation is to the Black parents and Black children. And our obligation is to explain the situation, what is going on. That's an obligation. It's a moral obligation that we have here. And if you, and morally, the researcher who has worked with us for the last 3-4 years, Dr. Nate Williams, has done the research on Ball State. And we have shown that of the 42 schools, only 5 of those schools had above a C. They were all D and F schools. And they made $20 million off of Black people, Black children. They owe that money back to those parents, so they took it out of. This is so upsetting because when I've shown, see, I have a chart, I'll get it, and it shows you how much they made every year. For 10 years, how much they have
I
made.
understand what you're saying, but when you talk to parents, and I am a public school advocate, but when you talk to parents whose children go to charter schools, these are usually children coming from those communities where the school building itself is in disrepair, where there's violence in the school, where the classes are overcrowded, where there are conditions that parents don't want to send their child to the school. And even more so, the school district has closed down so many schools.
Yeah.
And
I
so
hear
therefore,
you. I
the parents see
understand what
this
you're
shiny
saying.
new,
Let me give y'all
building
something to show
option.
what we've done here.
and they do, they take money, and they're not understanding when I say, but let's look at the test scores. Let's look at what your child is actually learning and doing. And they said, well, hell, they weren't learning anything in the public school. And they were getting beat up, threatened, and all this other stuff. And they had bad teachers. Now they get uniforms, they get a computer, they get a whiteboard, They go on class trips. So
Or are they graduating?
more of them are graduating. Yeah, unfortunately, they may be graduating with a C minus or a D minus, but more of them are graduating from those charter schools. The public schools, they're dropping out.
With 100 black boys, 100 black children enter a charter school here. 4 years later, 20 graduate. What happened to the 80?
They drop
I-
out.
I'm sorry.
Move them out.
We're having an ethical argument and an adaptive, ethical, emotional argument, and this is a technical issue that has emotion wrapped into it. And so I get it. I get that charter schools are failing here and all over the country. We got public schools that are also failing here and all over the country. So the question for me is, as an organization, how do we either we educate the community, B, prepare folks so that we can empower ourselves and create black folk who take charter schools over, who we hope might have the same philosophy that we have here, and that will instill some of that same rigor, expectations, climate, culture, etc. Because again, the train has already left the station. It ain't no running behind the train and saying, "Come on back." It's already gone. So why are we
Black charter
arguing?
schools.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an argument. I think it's just a discussion.
Okay. Well,
It's not an argument, it's a
See, we
discussion.
have black charter
I'm not
schools
saying it's hard.
in
I'm just
Los
saying,
Angeles
let's
that are jamming. They're doing well. They're
I'm
doing
just
well.
saying,
We
I
don't have any more in,
We had these other organizations that it came up.
Montgomery County doesn't have a charter.
Maybe there's an
PG
opportunity
has
here.
some. I'm not sure who
They fight
all the
against
vendors are.
Baltimore has a lot.
Explaining what's happening,
Uh-huh.
trying to see if we can get
If we could gather, work together,
get it moving in all in the same direction to that
I
point,
think we
which
should
is.
put
we
both
want
things
people to
out there,
stay-
pro charter, pro public. I think both
I
things.
think what was, if we believe we have a plan forward, I think that we figure out to, Robert's points yesterday about outcomes and metrics, like if we say, we think this is a way forward in the midst of this, to educate black children and children of color, in fact. We're all here, we wanna make sure that everybody's clear, this is our way forward, these are our principles, what we believe. Where are you all,
so.
right? And how are we gonna go, how are we gonna march forward so that we do just that? Which is
Public
inspire.
schools and black charters.
So let me make sure I'm hearing you, because what you're not proposing is a discussion for 35 boards. So this is a discussion for 35 board members, so that, because everybody's equal, so that we're having that discussion to see if this is something that they want to put their arms around and move forward in. Right. So it's like yesterday, and then we got to get back to this convention. It was like yesterday, I said, as I see it, we're probably going to be having some special board meetings so that committees are getting together to discuss this issue. But you don't want 35, I know all the board members, we don't want all 35 of these people in this conversation. But a committee, we could get a committee going around this and then present this information to the entire board. And have some, as my uncle used to say, at Christmas time, what's missing is a good argument. So we could have, and I know y'all had arguments at Christmas time or Thanksgiving, that's what we do. So we could, every week, so we could, see if this is a larger discussion, either in a special board meeting or when we get there in April. Because we need to work on how we're gonna, it doesn't stop us from bringing people to the conference that are gonna be addressing this, but in terms of the board moving this thing forward, it's a larger discussion. So I gotta bring us back to the convention, because we have to get that done. And then Diana wanted us to talk about what happened yesterday. So as I see it, you all have given me some names to look at. You're gonna give me the dates of or Lynette, will the dates of the exams.
It's already, it's April 4th through May 27th.
Yeah, but I wanna know what's going on between,
She wanted the subject.
no,
There, based on the state now, I mean, I could check in with the folks when I get back to the office, but the actual document that is released for the public says Parks exams April 4th through May 27th. So it doesn't give you a specific, like, we're gonna focus on
Yeah,
this.
California does that.
Yeah.
I mean, it says, you know, what, for example, most of the end of May is our high school examination.
Mhm.
So, but you don't do that. Then we have ESL examination.
We actually used to do it with our state test. So we had the MSA, Maryland School Assessment, and
Right.
the HSA High School Assessment. We did that. It would tell you what subject you're doing,
Right.
what. But the park exam doesn't do that. So when I get back to the office, I can
Okay.
check with the
All right.
folks in instructions.
So why don't I give us this, what was the purpose behind this, just to look at,
Oh, this is the testing.
Yeah. And I gave you mine the other night.
So the other thing is that while you're thinking, if you can just hit me, you know, through emails, some other names that you might have. I've already heard back from Linda. She's out of town, so she gets back today. She got me when I was here. She gets back today. She'll get back with me.
We have enough on here.
I think I think that the original, I think Harry's point is right on point in that school discipline is a huge issue, and that's a national issue.
I think so.
I think you have maybe Loretta Lynch because, like I said, they're sending the information to folks and saying, look, y'all got some serious issues. I need to change these things. So maybe you have her as the keynote, and then you have a panel of a superintendent,
people
probably principal, and
What would your suggestion be? Because we also have State Department people that come to our convention. If we had State Department people mixed in that group.
yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, my suggestion would be, you could actually do it one of two ways. You could have a superintendent's view. You could have a state level view. State level,
Classroom
like
teacher.
you could have a classroom teacher.
parent.
I would actually think you might want to consolidate the panel of classroom teacher, administrator, parent, possibly kid, because all the views are at a different level. So
Right.
the superintendent's got a view because Department of Justice is coming down on him. The state has a view
Right.
because it impacts performance, graduation, et cetera, so forth. And in our case, particularly in our case, we've actually got laws and regulations that they have to comply with. And there's some states that have a few things, but I guess ours is, what I've been told, a little bit more deliberate and exact. And then you've got the school level folk who have a totally different perspective than the state or the superintendents.
Now,
So I think it's all about how you.
Now, let me ask you one other question, one other question with regards to this whole issue on discipline. The other part of the conference, we have workshops. We have workshops all throughout the conference. So, I can, say to Shania, we met with the team here, and it is their belief that, 1/3 to 1/2 of the conference workshops ought to be around school discipline. It sounds like it should be 1/3. And then
1/3?
I think the question is, what are we talking about? Because everybody's going to talk about disproportionality,
Right.
but the question is, folks can get into the weeds. That's what I've been finding with folks. Folks talk about it, but they can't talk about it from a good. That's why I was asking, what is it that we're looking for? Because when you start talking about practitioners need something totally different than somebody at a central office level.
Yeah, but we would offer workshops that would entail stuff in terms of the parent university that we're having. So we'd have something for the parents, we'd have something for classroom teachers, and in terms of administration, that would all be policy. That would all be legislative kinds of things that we talk about.
I think the administration part, though, I think if you're talking at a central office level, you might be talking about a little bit of policy, but at the building level, I think you're talking.
Policy.
I'm not sure that you are.
I was a principal for like 10 or 15 years. Yeah, we talked about policy.
You make it, when you suspend a kid, you make a decision. Policy exists all the time. When my kids came to school in a stolen car, the policy said I should have called the police, I should have told them who came in the car, and the police should have taken them away.
But you misunderstand me, because there's policy that comes down from the state through the district.
Yeah.
But there's also policy that's set at the school level.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, because, sure enough, when you're suspending, there is that top level policy that comes down from the state legislature. Then there's the governance policy and with regards to school board, but principals set policy also.
So I think the question is, are we looking at it?
That's in terms of workshops.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about offering a variety of workshops
Mhm.
for people to participate
Yeah.
in. And I think the way, I would talk to Shania, if we did that, she could put in the brochure, for this workshop would benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Let me ask you, in your class in California, do they have police officers in the schools?
In some schools, we have police officers. In some schools, we have resource officers. And in most schools, we have, school security. So, and we, we have that. I mean, we have that. It depends on what your budget is, what you're gonna have. I had a complete police force when I was in England. But because money was funny, I had to get rid of a lot of my police force and have school resource officers. And the difference is, of course, the resource officers in many cases cannot arrest. So, and basically, your school police can't arrest. They really can't arrest. It's the city police that comes in and does their, they can arrest.
Baltimore City, they arrest you in school. They will arrest you out of school.
They can take you.
Baltimore City Public Schools has its own police force.
I have
And
my
they
own
used
police
to-
force.
But yeah, they will take you out in shackles.
Oh,
They don't do it as frequently as they used to.
yeah, I don't.
But back in the day, you get yoked up in school and
Yeah, I
be
didn't
Some
have
of these
that.
places, I mean, they,
Yeah, I think it depends on, like when I was in Chicago, people were walking down the street with guns and holsters.
Thank you.
And that's because it's legal now to carry.
One more over here.
I got four more coming. They're being printed.
So,
This is, you see these we have back in, this is, the historic journey. That was about the election of Barack Obama, that a friend of ours put together. We just give them away for him.
make sure you have,
Diana?
so,
Michael Price is trying to.
Okay, he should be coming in.
so let's talk about, Diana wanted us to talk about yesterday with, what's his name?
Chapter's trying to help.
Pastor.
Chapter's trying to help right now.
Pastor
Larry Smith.
Pastor Larry Smith. And we wanted to get some feedback from you in terms of next steps.
He's on the conference call.
So where are you guys with that? Larry Smith.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think the big thing that stuck out to me is that we need to develop a strategic plan. I mean, we talked about that at dinner. Because that's gonna kind of allocate the direction that we're going. I think we'll be able to identify some deficit areas of growth.
Do you think that, there's in place committee structures within the organization? Are you suggesting that there be, committee strategies? For example, one of our biggest challenges right now is membership. Another big challenge is communication or public relations. You brought that up yesterday. Do you think that each committee ought to develop some goals and then develop some strategies on how they're going to reach those? Or are you suggesting that the organization as a whole?
So I think we need to identify 4 big goals, because we don't want to do more than that. And I think each
For the organization?
And I think you've already named 2. But really, it's going to be 3. So one is membership, one is public relations and branding, one's communication, or that could go under the same one, and then finance. So I think each committee needs to fold our goals under those areas.
Say that one more time, Elena.
Communication and PR, branding, that's all the same, right? Same one. Membership, finance, and then what would be a fourth goal? Like, what's the 4th area of growth or deficit area that we see right now?
Yeah.
Okay, sustainability. So that's 4 goals right there.
That's 3. So 3 is enough.
Okay. So I would think that the board, the larger board, would get behind that those are 3 areas that we are severely lacking. And then I would think that each committee needs to come up with 2 to 3 goals under each of those areas.
And strategies on how they're gonna.
Right, so the goals.
So you're back to what I said.
Right,
And
each committee,
each committee look at goals and strategies.
but we all are aligned with the same.
There's another discussion that has to happen first with the 35 to make sure that right, and this is us, and to your point earlier, like this is us in the room,
Right.
and there's everyone else needs to build some consensus around the idea that these are the goals. And I just one other thing.
After video or showing the data?
And to ensure that those goals are actually in line with
Our mission.
and vision, because I think that one, like, again, a couple of things that stood out to me yesterday, at least in the presentation text. Naturally, the question about when Diane goes, the 18 months kind of span, which speaks to sustainability. I also think that question still, it's a question I've never thought to ask in that way, which is, who's going to miss you? Right? And so given what our mission is, given what we're trying to do, really to identify those goals, part of getting consensus around the goals is getting clarity about what is it that we're doing, what we intend to do, and how best then to do that.
What do you say, Ken?
I'm of the mind that your committee, the reason why you're elected is to have input into what's going on, and it goes back to the 35 people coming together. So those committees coming together certainly should have input into where our goals go. I know that we were fortunate enough to be here and hear the establishment of presenter and what he presented. And a lot of the things that he did talk about, what resonated most with me was his discussion on membership. And that, if your membership's not changing, then we have to reflect on who we are first. And I think that, past 5-6 years that I've been involved, it's been an amazing transition from the organization to see the individuals that have come on. But that's because, I think a lot of folks like myself, first off, didn't know the organization existed, right? If we can call it an organization. And the second thing is that, I tried to impart yesterday, it's the progressiveness of the message that's presented by the organization itself.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you on speaker.
And if that continues, right, that's, I think that fosters where we need to be or where we need to go. I do agree with the 4 aspects that were mentioned here, but one component that I find missing is family. How we support parents and how we support how we engage. There's always that issue of we're going to do this, but we don't ever get to reach the grassroots or why we're doing it in the first place.
Who benefits from what we do?
Absolutely. So I think that needs to be a key component of all 4 of those categories. Right, and listen to the discussion that has gone back and forth this morning. It's amazing to me how great minds we've covered the whole gamut of what the issues are within our communities, based on that one philosophy of where we are with the conference. And the last thing that resonates to me about what he said was, are we organization based on the conference? Are we organization based on what we want to move this whole program?
Yeah, our conference pretending to be an organization.
Yeah. How that?
That was good. Madam, what you say?
Oh, Lord. Oh, you ready? Oh.
Well, I agree with Ken, and I'd just like to add is that prior to knowing Lola, although I did a lot of things in education, especially in parent development and parent engagement, simulation, but knowing all the wonderful things that you do as far as policy, research, because very necessary in our community. But I'm trying to figure out where does the impact go? Who benefits from what you do? And does it filter down to those students, those children, that's part of our mission and our goal? And the parents need to know that you exist. And how can they access what you're doing? Because right now, it seems as though the people that know the most about you are educators. Or people, they may not be educated, but they're in that education environment, whether they're doctors, lawyers, policy people, actors. But the grassroots people don't know what you're doing, and they certainly could use this information to become advocates for Black children. How can we equip parents to use what we do to make them the fishermen for their community?
And there's a huge benefit of that. I mean, if an organization will do a conference, I think we're going to have to really figure that out.
When you say at the conference, but it has to be sustained throughout the life of the
I agree.
organization, not just that one conference when you bring the parents in.
I agree.
See, that's what the Black Male Action Plan, is supposed to do.
Well, exactly, that's.
That was the point you were gonna talk about, yeah, that's what it does.
That key component too has to be, the action plan has a lot to do with stakeholders too, right? Like there's so many
Right.
pieces out there that we were talking about this last night. It's just not about that one key ingredient, it's how all those ingredients, the biggest issue we have to deal with in our school population is mental health. The fact that our children are assaulted every single day in school, whether they're in a charter school or public school or even a private school. The fact that those issues, and not just those folks, you know, biggest one is Black teachers. Black teachers and administrators having to do a job with resources that they don't have. And then when they're given an opportunity to be really successful at what they do. I set them off. So, you know, part of that engagement for me, you know, comes from the fact that, I mean, here I am listening to this executive, right? And I sit on the national, because you mentioned it before, I'm on the National Alliance of Black School Educators executive. And hearing the conversations that it's the same. But then there's a totally different focus for the NCEBC
Than it is for.
than it is for this organization, which is why I love being here. My appreciation is the research and immediate contact right away. Because what he talked about yesterday definitely resonates to me about NCEBC.
So I heard from you, unless you had anything else to add.
Yes.
No, I think I am probably in total agreement with Ken. To me, and everyone else, the whole notion of are we a conference organization versus an organization? And the question for me, going back kind of yesterday, is again building the infrastructure here so that you're not just releasing products, you're actually supporting the products that you release, and you're doing that community work. You're doing that community work. So.
Yeah, because I tell you, I love coming here and going to the different schools and communities, doing some kind of work. You know, because then that there brings people together. When we go with the president or whoever, we're doing stuff in the communities. We go to those schools like yesterday. That's great. Yeah, that's all about the National Council of Educating Black Children. That's those connections.
Sir?
Looking forward, target release date or conference 2017. Where are we? What are we doing? In response to some of the conversation around the table, I would like to see a document released, tentative title, caveat input, buyer beware, where we bring in all the policy issues regarding education moving forward in this century. What does it look like? bring those views. We have the researchers across the spectrum where we're providing a uniform information is for parents to make their own informed decision, but we build our internal capacity where we can support those decisions at whatever level they may be made. That we look at both, the discipline, school finance, school governance, family engagement, all those component pieces that are part of our the blueprint for action and core values, but have a mobilization piece where if someone calls the NCEBC office and in one of our regions, with 2017 being a target where regions are back in effect and in the process of building their momentum, where it becomes regional action, but controlled by the national office, where, best analogy would be a McDonald's and its franchising in terms of wherever you go to a McDonald's, the quality is uniform, there's the monitor, but everybody's need is met, whether it's the veggie wrap or the triple quarter pound. And so we run the entire range, but we build that in. So we don't take an issue with regard to charter schools. We just advise communities in terms of governance, finance, what to look at, and become a sounding board. Because when I was in your position, just coming onto the board, the state of Missouri was trying to make a decision with regard to St. Louis, Kansas City, and the Normandy School District. Normandy, the smallest of the group, became the target because if you can chip off, the least powerful, then you can set the precedent to move to the stronger districts. With the national office's help, we generated a response to the State Department of Education's question: what do we do with provisionally accredited or unaccredited districts in terms of governance, finance, and the other pieces? With that, we looked at the Mind Trust, what was going on here in Indianapolis, because that same think tank has generated education entrepreneurs countrywide who are looking at siphoning off those dollars that are traditionally go to public education, and how do we combat that? And Diana, and again, thank you very much. Spent long hours with me and providing resources from the national office as we looked at, when I stand before the commissioner and make a public statement, do I begin with why are we doing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Where if the four of you form a charter school, by creating the nonprofit, and you find 100 children at the state rate of $10,000 per head, suddenly the four of you have $1 million to deal with. All you need to do is find someone who's certified to be your principal/superintendent, but then based on the models, you can have your own company that's for-profit that provides the books, you can provide the other supplies, you can provide the furniture, and suddenly dollars going into the classroom is based on what you as a board decide. But under Missouri law, a board, as long as there's disclosure among you of any potential conflicts and everyone else is fine with it moves forward. So we have to teach parents how to follow the dollars as they look at, just as you can go to a public school and there's full disclosure of the budget, how do you get to the minutia of who's providing the supplies, the insurance, all the component pieces for these schools, the dollars going to the classroom. So that's what I see with that caveat emptor guide, where we show parents how, either through looking at websites, other information, or who to talk to in terms of hopefully partnerships with attorneys in those things, on how to really look at the governance, the finance, and the other pieces. That's what I'd see, as our 2017 long-range goal. Again, that would be based on the needs assessment, the sustainability plan, and strategic planning. What does that look like? But I think it touches on, if we're a national council on educating Black children, what work do we have that pushes the envelope forward?
So let me share what you should be on, because you're right on target. Part of the way we have used the office here is that we have seen ourselves as an informer, inform Black parents, inform the Black community about the education of their children. And we started this with data. We mined this data on every high school in the state, in 20 different states. and they show the graduation rates. It shows what kind of diploma each child got. It showed how many went on to college and how many did not go on. So with that data mined, with the help of IU, we then began to look at school improvement plans that the state required for Title I schools. Only we found out that many of these plans were never written, they were never read by the state. They were just simply turned in and put onto a shelf to collect dust. So we went and contacted every school and asked for their school improvement plan. We pulled together a team of retired teachers, retired principals, to look and read the plans and to rate them. And this is a report that Ray Winbush wrote for us, that wrote the summary. But here's the actual. We looked at the test scores, the graduation rates, suspension and expulsion rates, and cultural competencies of that school. And we asked certain questions. We gave a brief history of the school, the process that we use to analyze these plans. We have a lot of help from the research world, helped us do this. We then got into looking at if or not their plan met certain questions, their graduation rates. And then we found that most of them had a very poor graduation rate. We asked about suspension and expulsions. We found that most of them were expelling at high numbers Black children. We asked questions about the data, the testing data. We found that Black children were not doing well on the state test. So we compiled all of this data with some recommendations and some commendations regarding cultural competency. We felt that perhaps if we were able to train the teachers to better engage the students in the teaching and learning process, using a set of strategies or perhaps understanding the sociological factors that impact learning, the teachers would do a better job. Those were some recommendations. Then we called a citywide meeting of the community. And we presented them with what their school was doing. We also had the superintendents there. Some were very angry that we had looked at their data. Who were we to be looking at this? The parents were extremely happy to have it. The Black community didn't have anyone leading them in that kind of thinking. There was no leadership to having to analyze as parents. This is how you go about doing that. We did this and we've done it for the last couple of years. We have done it for a while. There was no need to do it after they started to demand that they had to publish the data. This is just one of the things here.
Let me put you on the speakerphone, okay?
This is it. I've got
Sheila.
a lot of these
Sheila
here.
is on Diana's speakerphone.
Okay, good.
So the methodology for the,
Then we also have
is that accessible?
this here. Yeah, Ray has what? Me talking.
So like what I just heard, what, to some of the discussion we've been having around, based on what we talked about with Larry Smith yesterday, in terms of looking forward and thinking about thinking about the various, I don't like to use the word products, but thinking about the various things that connect us to other people, that give us relevance to other people. The thing that stands out, the question I have is the methodology that was used to rate based on that data. Is that, because I'm not from Indiana, I'm not, maybe not from any of the other cities that were represented,
Yeah.
but that kind of a methodology is something that would be applicable anywhere.
Doesn't matter where you are, you can do the same process. If this can be done in a variety of ways. That was done for Indiana. If you look at this document here, this was done by Journey for Justice. Okay. And the thing about death by 1,000 cuts, and Sheila she knows all about this. When you look on page number 1, This is a really a great illustration of what's occurring nationally. You see examples of recent school closures. This is a massive closure of schools all over the U.S. And when you look at those numbers, there's a movement here of these numbers. On the next page, page number 3, there is shrinking public school districts. And when you look at all the 10 major cities that we were all together, 10 of us were, and you look at the number of students of color that was there in 2011, 2012 in those districts, all of them were 80 or 90%. Then look at the reduction in public school enrollment and where those kids went. This is the kind of research and data that helps you to make decisions about and question what is happening to you as a community. I don't mean just now, I'm talking about as a community across the entire country. And then if you look over here, I just did this presentation for Indiana for Moral Monday movement. It talks about public education is too big and important to fail. Now, I think that public education must stay. We have to have it. We cannot become a small European country where every school is equal. We won't survive. We won't survive. Then there is this. Let's see. There's an article talking here about how this movement has expanded that school-to-prison pipeline, and the restructuring of cities have also done the very same thing. In this city, they've moved all the blacks out of the central core, and we all now live east. They moved the Latinos all west. Downtown is all white. Up to this street here, 38th Street, that's a dividing line. And when you cross 38th Street, you get into some mixed neighborhoods. They're very high income homes. And so that is stayed white. That is also going to stay Michael Kathy, right? Okay, Michael. And each city has their own little story here. Philadelphia, you can read these on the plane going back if you like. So here is the loss of students on page number 20. The increase in charter school enrollment from 2005 to last year on page 20. Then you have the change in public school enrollments, and they're all very negative. Then you have the net effect on students. There it is. Some of the researchers call this recolonization. And I don't know if I would call it recolonization, but there's some kind of colonizing going on to move you from one place over to another place. And where they moved you from, you were under school boards that were, some were black, some were mixed. Some had black superintendents, some did not. They moved you to a place where it's owned by hedge fund people. They're owned by corporations. They're owned by corporations in England, Turkey, and other places. That's where I'm now. And that's who's getting that money. I've lost control of my education. And Asa, I learned from Asa, you always maintain control of educating your own children. Nobody else, let somebody else educate their own children but us. And that's where this is something, it goes back to my African heart. Then when you look at this, and you look at where these cities are, and you look at the regentrification that's occurring in those very same cities, this is nothing but a tool to help educate our own people as to what is happening to them. In the back, there is some suggestions of ways to do a lot better job. I understand from one of the ladies at the conference, New York City has taken 120 schools, and they're now calling them community schools. The mayor got a lot of extra dollars to pump into those schools to give them some wraparound services, healthcare and social work, things we used to have in public schools back in the 70s. So that could be one of the alternatives, but I just think that this is the main one to read. It was done by a group of researchers. It was done by parents. Journey for Justice is a group of parents, led by Jetu Brown out of Chicago, and Sorry is out of New York City. But you can see who the people are and who all actually belongs to this.
You know, it's unfortunate, it's a lot of work that is missing from this is the number of African-American charter schools that are embedded into this information. And the other thing I looked at that was, because I was looking at LAUSD, it had 72,000 kids in charter schools. I know it's much more than that. You know, I know it's close to 300,000. But out of that 300,000, we have, and I don't know if you guys have this, independent and dependent charter schools. Mm-hmm. And so some of the dependent charters, some of those numbers represent the dependent charter schools. The other factor that's in there, this is only specific to LA, is the number of people, because they talk about decrease in enrollment, the number of particularly Black folks who have moved out of LA into like Moreno Valley, mm-hmm. where the housing is cheaper, but they moved out because of renovation. So, you know, public housing was torn down, or affordable housing, or Section 8 housing was torn down, and these folks just moved from one area to the next. That would be some good information.
Baltimore.
That's by design.
Yeah, Baltimore is some of the.
Of course.
But they imploded.
They imploded all.
So even if we have research, we have one that works out of this office, Dr. Nate Williams. But we on our board, we have great researchers, Linda and Ivory Tolson and others. I think if we just looked at as a long range project, some Black organization needs to really get into studying this and into reporting on this and into with the goal in mind of not I got you kind of thing, but the goal in mind of educating parents of what this is, of what it is, how it is working. Because all the parents know is that there's a school down the street, and I'm gonna send my child right down the street. Mm-hmm. They have no idea the mass movement of children, the closure of these schools, and the destruction of many neighborhoods across this country. It's a massive issue, and it's hard to just say it's only in my neighborhood. It's not. Well, I found out it's more than just national, it's international.
Yeah, it is. But I think the challenge for particularly many of the parents who are impacted by that particular information is that they got a lot of stuff going on in life, and that's not to make a judgment call. But if you're working at some place that doesn't pay you a fair wage, then you got to work at somewhere else to compensate or to subsidize the other part. So, I mean, I think even with the information, I don't know how much movement we will get. I'm just being honest about it. So the other question for me
by
is,
ourselves we wouldn't get it. I think we're gonna have to team with others.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to get more.
Yeah, but we
critical mass.
We also need to look at, and I don't know who said that, how we can offer programs that are at least better than or equitable to what the charter schools offer. I read charter school grants, and what they do, and I'm thinking about what you said about parents who work. Charter schools will say, I'm going to educate, I'm going to be with your kids till 6 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. I'm going to feed them dinner, and I'm going to be there with them till 7:30 in the evening. They're going to do their homework. I'm the one that's amazing to me is KIPP Academy. Mm-hmm. But you all know KIPP Charter School, those kids get there at 6 o'clock in the morning because I oversaw them. They're there with those kids till 7, 8 o'clock at night. They do their homework with them, they feed them dinner, they have extracurricular activities. That's the kind of stuff we're going to have to offer our parents, with our working parents.
That's particularly why I keep trying, at least I keep trying to say, like, the train has left the station. Like, it's now time to start putting our work, our mind, our bodies to action. Like, I get it that there are horrible things happening. There have been horrible things that have happened to us since we've been in this hemisphere, particularly with these folks. So the reality is that is real. That's our history. We have to embrace it. But the next part of that conversation is we have knowledge, but true power is the application of knowledge. So we got it. Now let's move forward and, like you say, build the programs, build the structures, build the schools, whatever it is that are going to help facilitate and strengthen our communities when we know someone is purposely and deliberately attacking them.
And let me just make this last point. The other part of it is, and I think Diana and Bill has alluded to it, perhaps we all have, is we got to get the real data out of what is actually happening in those charter schools. That's a misnomer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that all of the charter schools aren't doing as well as they say they're doing. But our people don't have that information many times. I'm telling you, just from the superintendent's point of view, they want to go to a private school because it presents status to them. My child is in Bill Dahl Hit Academy, and the school is failing. But all they know, they can get in their social circles. They can go to church and say, my child goes to such and such an academy and has the perception of a private school, a misperception of a private school.
The other thing I was thinking, because all of the school issues really generated because of housing. Even Brown decision was based on a housing decision.
Right.
That as we move forward, although this is a big picture, that we should also try to encourage affordability in those cities where there's an opportunity for affordability. I know in DC, the mayor's trying to at least explore some affordable housing. And I think it's important because although we have the charter schools, what drives a lot of this is the fact that the gentrification of our inner cities has taken place and is continuing to take place. So we need to still have some affordability in order to have a voice in that area.
If I may, this is Sheila. As a commissioner, I have to bring in, because of the rule, I have to bring in the first 200 charter schools in the state of New York. And I think you're right in that parents do see charter schools as the next step below a private school. And yes, charter schools were in the state of New York. I can't talk about the rest of the country. But charter schools were targeted for Black districts. If we tried to put a charter school in a white district, the response would be, that's not for us. We don't want a charter school here. That's not for our quote unquote community. So everybody understands the politics behind charter schools. They're not prestigious in white communities because that says there's something quote unquote Black about us, non-conforming about us. And they are popular in the cities where people do see them as one step below a private school. However, I had the opportunity as a commissioner to help to construct the charter school law for the state of New York. So when you look at charter schools across the country, you understand that there are different standards all across the country. But in New York, I think we have some of the toughest standards. So you can open for 5 years, right? You have a 5-year contract with the state, and there are certain criteria that you have to meet in terms of making proficiency, kind of piggybacking on No Child Left Behind. But some of the criteria, just take the charter school I'm working with. The criteria for this last charter renewal was that you had to have a certain percentage in terms of proficiency, and we have the toughest exit standards in high school than anybody in the country. Our children have to pass 5 Regents exams that have been given for the past 100+ years. And in order to get an advanced Regents diploma, then you have to pass 9 Regents exams in specific science, math, social studies, and English. And so the children have to pass those exams, exit exam. But then if you're a charter high school, any child who performed in level 1 and level 2 on the 8th grade exam, that if you as a charter high school don't get them to proficiency by the 11th grade, then you in fact put your school in jeopardy of closing. You also have to have 75% of your children have to reach college proficiency within that 5 years, your graduating class. So that if they don't score, a college proficiency has been set at a 75 and in ELA and an 80 in math on the English and math regions, which are very difficult. In addition to that, you have other criteria. I have at least 50 criteria that I'm working with those schools to make sure that they meet them. I mean, so depending upon the state, if the charter school was a regular public school in New York City, it would not be able to stay open because the criteria is so different. And in the regular schools, you just got to get kids to pass either with an IEP or a regular diploma. We have 100% of our children, a lot of Black and Hispanic males, getting accepted to college, and we have probably about 98% this past year. The percentage of children that graduated. We had a couple that had to finish it in summer school. So this whole issue of charter schools has to be broken down into what does each, if we're going to look at it, what are the standards in each state? Because the state of New York is already also doing the higher standards from the federal government. Common Core. I think we're the only state that's doing we have fully implemented Common Core. And it's killing the kids because it is so difficult. So I think we have to look at in each state or a group of states in terms of charter schools and what the standards are. Because you're right, they may very well be ripping off because they do take public funds out of the public school system. But it may not be getting parents and children what they really need if the standards are so low.
Sheila, this is Diana. What if we worked with a team of research people to help us to gather that data? And I think I can get my hands on a couple of grad students.
On what the state.
The data for each state, which is probably
Yeah,
already published.
that would be great. The National Charter School Institute
Find it, right?
may be a place where they probably already have that data. Nina Reese, who's a former assistant secretary that I work with when I work with George Bush, I think she's the head of the National Association of Charter Schools. And so Nina is data minded for the Bush administration, so she would definitely have the data. Somebody out there has the data already, and you don't have to collect it, you just have to analyze it.
All right, that would be a starting point. I'm sure I can, Robin Hughes, who used to work with us, is now the dean of the School of Ed over there at IUPUI. And I'm sure Robin has grad students that I'm sure she would work with us to do that, to collect all that data for us. But that would be a starting point because I know the laws do vary state by state. And that would be a good comparison for us to start with before we start looking at the data of each school. I will talk with Dr. Hughes and see, because if we can get that kind of support out of the School of Ed or out
Okay.
of
And then I can CC you on an email to Nina Reese
Okay,
at the
good.
National Charter School Institute
That's
to
good.
see if what they have available for the public.
And I also wondered on the conversation, the discussion we've been having all along though, what analysis of data would have the most impact in terms of explaining, providing context and narrative to what's happening, right? Because the charter school data, unless you're one of us,
11, not 5, that's 12.
At 12, we got this down.
Well, I think if you look at some of the problems for our children in charter schools, you have to look at, number one, how often are they suspended? That becomes a major problem.
Yes, it is.
Charter schools will continuously suspend the child until they get rid of the child,
Yes.
so,
which is not what you should do.
no.
So they don't keep any child that doesn't conform to their rules and regulations, and they will then suspend them. You also need to look at what are your special ed numbers. The special ed and the English language learner numbers in a charter school must be similar to the district. Otherwise, you just created a boutique school that's going to give you increased numbers without the same type of children that are in the regular schools within the district.
Right.
And the other thing, it would be, if looking at teasing out those criteria, looking at, well, what is the advantage of a charter school in terms of the data over a school in the district? What are your comparisons? What's your comparative data look like? The charter schools versus the district schools.
Right.
The real issue, these charter schools kick these kids out that don't conform to their rules, and a regular public school can't. And they have a way of circumventing any lottery process by only putting those kids in the pool that they want to have in the pool, because they don't want any old child coming into their boutique school.
Right, and so you weren't here earlier, and we were talking. So one of the things I was thinking about, and I agree with you wholeheartedly about the charter school data. One of the things we have been talking about earlier before you joined us was just the trying to create the context for people beyond the actual school houses, right? So impact of housing. So one of the things I've always thought would be fascinating to help people understand what's happening is, so we have all this data about school closures. We have all this data about, particularly in the larger, we took the top 100, the top 50 urban districts in terms of size, and being able to show people how all these things are interrelated, right? That where you see gentrification, where you are seeing massive school closures, where you are seeing the influx of privately run charter schools that are in fact failing our children as well, and that just being able to see how all those things are connected, because we talk about them generally. We'll talk about charter schools being targeted to certain communities, but then we don't talk about the other issues that are also impacting them. Just to help create that broader narrative for folks about what's actually happening around them while either their schools are being closed, while charters are being pushed on them. Does that make sense?
Yes. And I do apologize. I came a few minutes late, but I have been waiting on the line for over a half an hour.
Yeah, we just saw your email.
For connecting us up.
I'm sorry we didn't get
I was on the line, on the conference call line, but the line wasn't open.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Pam for opening up the line.
I'm sorry. We're gonna have to have a training session with all board members on how to do this live stream. It's very easy. And most of them probably have smartphones. It's just a matter of clicking. And it's very, very simple. So I'm going to have our technician to set up a time with a small group of people each time to train them on how to just go on their cell phone and click.
but your cell phone needs to have a camera on it. And most phones do have a camera. So it's not difficult. We just need to do some training, and that's gonna be my next priority here, is to set that training up for board members to be able to easily access.
Thank
Okay,
you, Diana.
no, you're welcome. Okay, we're going to close out. It's about 11. We said we would go up until 11 o'clock. So Sheila, I will talk with you later. I'll give you a call.
Okay.
And we can, we'll talk then. Thank you for calling in. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Other May.
What?
Phone.
Oh.
I didn't know where she was. So, let me see, who's next to go to the airport?
Me,
What time is your plane?
2:30.
Oh, you're fine.
Well, we're going together.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think the three of us, because I think
Here you go together.
I think Harry said he's trying to get out of here early too.
So is three of you going?
We'll go together.
What about, do you know about,
She doesn't leave
Mama?
until, Monroe doesn't leave until 4:30.
okay, well,
She's going back to the hotel.
okay, I can take you for here. You have your things? or-
We do. Do you have your things here?
No, I left mine here.
Oh, you left your things at the hotel?
Yeah, it's just there. I just have to stop by. and pick it up.
Okay, okay. That's not a problem.
And then, oh yeah, well, so.
As soon as my car,
Rob-
as soon as my car gets back, we met took Pam to the airport.
Right, because she's nervous about, I think she'll be fine.
Should be fine.
If the airport's only 15 minutes
Indianapolis
away.
Airport is not a New York City type
Exactly.
airport.
I was gonna say, when I flew in yesterday, it was quiet.
It's quiet. I mean, you can, on
I'm
a
like, where
Saturday,
is
nobody's
everybody?
there in line.
Really? I was amazed.
School started back. There's no people
I
going
said,
on
where is
vacation.
everybody?
People are coming here for the game, but there's no.
It was pretty quiet yesterday.
The game's in Buffalo.
Yes, I forgot it's in Buffalo.
Right,
I forgot.
exactly. Even though they had the street blocked
A
off.
lot of times,
So,
you have people running around.
I'd like some feedback. We have an evaluation form. I'll find it. I know I don't work till the net gets back. We can get it filled out, but I would like to get the feedback on what it is you need as new members, and how can we better meet those needs.
This is a really nice email that Chappie wrote. Did you see the email that Chappie wrote? He said, family, yesterday's induction ceremony for our new NCEBC board members was stellar. It was as elegant as it was meaningful. The new board members were welcomed with a regal diplomacy and a strong cultural milieu. Especially notable were the preambles that were offered by board member Bill and executive director Diana. In fact, I requested that each of their remarks be shared with the board, if possible. The accurate and enlightening references to ASEC, Ron, and our founder, Congressman Hawkins, beautifully framed our ceremony and discussion. Today's sessions only got in on the edges. I did hear the purposeful voice of our beautiful brother Kim from Nova Scotia. So happy for international representation. Thank you all. Welcome all. Congratulations. All Hotep. Chappie.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, that was very nice.
Okay.
I'll go use that.
Input. Just, I need to frame where how do we better do, I'm always looking for how do we improve. Nothing's ever stellar. It's always moving.
Diana was
So-
in here when we had that session about the strategic plan and
No, I was trying to be
engaging.
good.
I was in your comments about engaging the other board members. Really?
Come on, Ellen. Come on, Ellen, man.
No, Harry was the one. I always said, I gave the
Oh, that
four.
conversation.
Yeah, I gave the goals, but you kind of said we need to,
I was just saying, I
you
think
and Ken were
we
saying.
were talking about, in relation to what, your question about, how yesterday went with, Larry Smith. And so we arrived at a point where we said that it would be important to identify some, some really big goals that would then help to guide the work of the committees, and help the committees better structure their work. And my only comment really was about, I think it would be important though that there be some sort of consensus reached with at least the discussion to try to reach consensus about, or really to develop those goals with the 35, right? Because you want to make sure that all of the board members have buy-in, because they'll be responsible for articulating that to potential partners, to sponsors, to potential members, donors, and things like that. And so that was my only, I agreed with the point made. I just wanted the extension of that. We can have that conversation somewhere. I don't know if it's first or in the middle.
And so how do we engage them? I mean, I know we're all in different geographical locations. And I mean, is it us having a conference call? Is it us doing like kind of the Google Hangout again?
Well, unfortunately, we all are scattered. We're all not in the
We're all
same city. We're all over the place, from the East Coast to West Coast. Normally, in past history, we have had 3 meetings a year. We have a fall meeting, we have a winter meeting, and we have a spring meeting, which is at the actual conference. Last year, Sheila, under her presidency, we actually began to meet on a monthly basis. Okay. They were all teleconference calls. But you don't have people fully engaged in teleconference calls because you don't know when they come on or who hung up. You know, I just don't like trying to do serious work like that over the telephone. This is a little better, this Google Hangout, a little bit better. And I think that we can perfect that once we train our board members how to log on. For some reason, they seem to be fearful of the technology. And I know everyone, all 35 people, I don't know anyone that has a flip phone.
Maybe.
I don't know if anyone has one, except my husband.
That's one.
Old school. That's old school right there.
That's old school. I mean old school.
I ain't mad at them either.
But I'm figuring they all have phones because they take pictures at the conferences with them.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of them, when it says click here, it's clicking there on their phone and having the camera where they can be seen. And it comes up as Google Hangout. I mean, it's not difficult. You don't have to download Google Hangout because the link is going to take you right to it.
Maybe people don't want to be seen. They want to be heard, but not seen.
Well, maybe one of the things you could do.
The other thing is a cost to come to meetings. And of the 35, I'm going to say 10 to 15 are probably retirees that don't have the money, fixed incomes to come and fly to meetings every month. This is I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So the only other way we can do that is what we're doing, is with this hangout. We just got to train people to effectively do it.
Is it possible to come up with a schedule? It is certainly possible to come up with a schedule where perhaps there are 3 in-person meetings, there's maybe 3 call-ins, and then there's 3 Google, because part of what it is, you're going to have to get people's skills up. So perhaps when you have an in-person meeting, part of the in-person meeting is training folks on Google Hangout or whatever the system you use, so that people are a bit more comfortable with it. And then perhaps, and again, this kind of goes back to the whole conversation about strategic planning. So then the next year, then maybe you do half the meetings in Google Hangout, 2 meetings or 3 meetings on calls, and then another 3 meetings in person. Yes.
It may not be that they don't know how to use Google Hangout. They choose not to use it. I'm saying people may just want to be heard and participate via voice, not via sight.
And then my only point is for those who don't know how to use it, give them the opportunity to learn the skill. If they don't want to learn, then that's on them. You can't force them to do it. You can still provide the call in. But my only suggestion is that if they're not comfortable and if they want to actually use the tool, then we should provide them the opportunity to get the tool.
Well, basically, I'm pretty much saying training, and we can do that. We can have the Alvin can set meetings up. If they call in, Alvin can walk with how to do that. That's the easy part. That's the easy part of it. That's just logistical and
mechanical.
Mhm.
But I want to know more about feedback from you on what we need to do, not only for the time that you have been here, but in terms of the conversations that Larry was taking us through yesterday.
If I might, I mean, it may be, conference calls are a struggle typically when either the agenda is too heavy.
Yep.
Or it has an agenda, but it's not really focused. So if we were to take some of what we talked about today in terms of what we think is where we want to go, like creating goals, trying to get people's perspective about needs, that kind of stuff, maybe you could have some very specialized calls, right? Like just 1 hour, with a narrative that gets sent out as a part of the invitation to the call, and a series of calls. We're going to have a series of calls over the next few months, so that one, it doesn't obligate people to be on each call, right? But what it does do, and then you say on this call, given what the narrative is about what was presented to the board and what we talked about for those who were present, we want to try to address some of these questions to get to this end, so that when we are together face to face, we can actually have a sort of a robust discussion about what gets fed out of those different. So if we take some of the questions that were presented in Larry's presentation against what it is that we want to have, what our end game is in terms of the discussions we want to have, I think you can have some very targeted discussions that don't that are managed well, because they are very focused in terms of getting. So when somebody tries to go talking about something else, and remember now, this is what this call is about. This is what we're doing. If you keep it very narrow, which will, and those who want to participate in that discussion will be on the phone, or if that's possible, those who are comfortable doing it that way, they can do that. But each one being very specific and narrow, you could actually.
Yeah. And if I might add, I actually, the whole Larry piece, I think if you sent out this presentation, but then ask people the specific slides, and I don't remember what number of slides there were, perhaps you need to add a number, but you had people answer the questions on those slides, had all of the board members, all 35, give them a date, this is when it needs to be back to me by, and if it's not back, then, I guess you really don't have a role or have a desire. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody, but if you're saying we've only got 18 months left and you're talking critical mass, we got to move forward. And so I would put that in place and ask questions, and then maybe, I don't know, it's only 2 of you guys, but maybe come up with some type of table or something that shows what people said. Was it, we needed to be a community-based organization? Did respondents say we needed to be a research-based organization? Because that might even begin to kind of sift out, okay, well, strategic plan wise, okay, these are the things that people are saying we need to be. And if you get critical mass in 3 separate areas, then okay, this is, we've got where we need to go now. And now you write specific goals or strategic goals around where people say we need to be. But I think his presentation, again, I can't remember what the slide numbers were, or even if he numbered them.
Early.
The early ones. And then there were some that were a little bit later too, that I thought asked some, thought-provoking questions specifically around what the organization's goal is. So yeah, I would suggest just doing that, and maybe you give them a month, maybe a month and a half to respond. Go ahead.
So you could, we use a thing called Jot Form, which we have to have licenses for, but you could use a Survey Monkey and break it up to make it easier, to make it, so, because those are, if you put all those questions in one thing, like I ain't answering all that, right? Like, and after a month, then, so breaking them up by like topic. So those first very aspirational questions, given a date, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks for people to respond to, be on the lookout after that. And then that way, the only reason I'm suggesting the Survey Monkey or Jot Form, I don't know how I've never used Survey Monkey.
We have that here in the office.
Do you have access to the table?
We also have Woo Food, and we use Woo Food. last month to send out to the board to ask some questions, and,
You use Google?
he comes back and we can compile.
Use what?
Google.
I don't use Doodle. I have a hard time.
I'm only asking because to your point, on the back end, being able to then just simply pull out the spreadsheet,
Mhm.
and you could send that to people to read. The rest of for people to read and digest all the things that have been said, so that you all don't have to actually try to create that. Because if you send out the slides and have people to respond to the
Fair.
Might be
question,
too much.
Yeah,
there's
true.
a lot of, the work.
Yeah.
But there's a way to get around that too. If you use polleverywhere.com, what will happen with polleverywhere.com, you take the slide with the questions on it, and then everybody uses their cell phone, which we all have, and then you have a number that you call, and actually you just press whether you read that or not. So everybody, all 35 people are responding, so
At the same time,
at the same time. Because you only bring out one question,
and you can
and
really.
then you can see
Right.
response right away, and then it will actually put it in a graph for you.
So every month we have to tally.
Yeah.
Something in that, right.
Yeah.
But it's everywhere, polleverywhere.com does that for you. I do that with my staff, so I got 40, I got 50 some odd staff, bring them all in, I use a cell phone. And when I ask some dumb questions, you gotta put the hand up. You'd rather look at the cell phone anyway.
Amen. Amen.
So, they're all there fooling around with it, so. Get them to use it.
Poll everywhere, you said poll.
Polleverywhere.com. Yes, sir. Best thing in the world.
Okay,
We need
I
to
like that. Now, they have to have it downloaded on their.
Oh, no, you send that to them. You send
Oh, you
everything
send it to them and they get,
Once-
I love it.
Once you go in there, you send it to all, you have everybody's cell phone number, and you just send it to them. No, actually, they dial in.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
dial right
No
into
one
it,
that could do that.
and it just happened to be
Yeah.
a fallout from the professor at St. Mary's University. He's from NCEBC. We do that stuff all the time. He's a brain rot.
We're having we were yesterday, KI is loading us a technology person one day a week in the office. And so she starts next week. And this is some job. All these, what you're telling me to do, is going right to that techie. She's a young, she's a young 10-year-old that can do all kinds of wonderful things. I call them 10 and 12-year-olds because they're young and they just fly.
Oh, yeah.
And so she'll be here one day a week. Then we have IUPUI is giving me a student for work study. And she'll be here 2 days a week. So this will not fall on me. Our Lynette is going to be techie kids to actually do. Anything else on here that you think that we need to pay attention to?
I think until we get, at least to me, I don't, until we get that type of information, I don't know how far we can go. We can talk about the conference and all that,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, we have to have a direction that we're headed in.
Right.
And until we get that feedback from the rest of the board members, I don't know that you can really plan or go anywhere.
Well, I think that, Pam, we'll need to pull together a team of people to look at the mission, vision, and where we have been in the past, and where we are, the state of urban education today, and what the future looks like, in order to do some actual planning with that. And I'm sure she's gonna pull a team together to do that.
Bill was talking last night, he said he'd do it all by himself. That's what he told us at the table.
Bill,
That's
you
all
do it all
I'm just
by
saying. That's what I'm just saying. That's what I
You gonna
heard.
do it all by yourself?
Sam the Morehouse, man, I could do it all on my own. That's what they trained us. That's what he told me last night. I'm just,
Now, let's see, Diana knows.
You were saying,
How many hours do we spend on the phone?
oh, 2 or 3 in the morning. Oh my goodness. I kept saying, who are you talking to again? His name is Bill. Oh, all right. Well, I tell you, okay, those are some things that that we definitely, Pam and I will get together and begin to really kind of talk about and see where we're gonna actually head with everything.
So that means really no committees. I mean, like I know Charles and I were talking on the way back yesterday about the finance. We're concerned about we know that we have the marching orders of how much we're trying to generate from the conference, but I think part of that conversation is we get the money, then what do we do with it? So,
The plan to be in place.
right.
Right.
plan's gotta be.
It's gotta be in place. So,
Right. We had a slide up before, something you weren't here in the room. Can you pull that back up, Robert? There it is. We were looking, Mr. Ryan is, he and I argue every time he comes in here. We're the same age bracket, so we argue. He's like my husband, you know. The other day, my husband came in, he and I were going at it, and he says, "Oh man, I'm glad you don't live at our house." But he was trying to tell me that in order for us to be able to plan an effective conference, you really need all that data compiled, and I agree with him on that. So he had Lynette going back and doing the last 5 years of conferences, and what percentage came from out of state and what came from the city.
interesting.
And the average was 64% came from outside of the city that we were in, except Indianapolis, where only 31% came outside, the rest came from inside. In New Orleans, I think that number was close to 89% from outside.
Yeah, but you know what?
Yeah.
That's why it needs to move around. Like when we were in Vegas
Yeah, Las Vegas.
and New Orleans,
Yeah.
you go there.
Yeah, New Orleans, right.
There's a conference down there.
And the thing of it is,
Right.
we had that conference during the spring break in
Exactly.
New Orleans.
Yes, sir.
And they were all gone. There were schools were closed.
Yep.
And we still had all these people that came from outside because it was during spring break for a lot of them.
Right.
And so they just came on down for spring break.
Was it Mardi Gras down too?
No.
They were
It's
Easter
always
time
there.
and they were there just having a good time, you know.
But that didn't stop us.
So,
Not going to New Orleans. No.
no, we're not gonna do that one no more.
So debauchery went on down there?
It was
That one no more.
Yeah.
So if we, looking at Baltimore, and I don't know that city. I don't have a feel for that city. I know most of them, but I don't know the superintendents like I know in other cities.
Again, I mean, looking at, what's his name, Rex Thornton, he's, as my uncle says, he's on the ragged edge of nothing and slipping. If he makes it to the end of the year, or even makes it to, let's say, March, he's done a masterful job of keeping his job, because there's not a whole lot of happiness with him in the school system in Baltimore City, particularly after what happened with the kids. But that wasn't his fault.
That was the mayor's dictation.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault, but unfortunately, he's catching it because of what took place. Like I said, Dallas Dance is the Baltimore County Superintendent. He would be, like I said, the one that I would contact if I were looking at somebody in the Baltimore area. There's a new superintendent in Anne Arundel County who is what's his name? DeSoto or something. He's not really.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you. I'm fine. Where did you stop in? Okay.
So it's
Who was
DeSoto.
in any record?
The guy, I believe the guy's last name is DeSoto, but he's not. I don't know how friendly he is to people of color, even though he has a name of DeSoto. To the north of Baltimore City and County is Harford County, which is very conservative. North of Baltimore County is Carroll County, which is very
What
conservative.
about the Howard?
Howard County's got a superintendent. She's Foose is a little crazy, but she's okay. Renee Foose, Foose. She might be somebody that you'd be with, but yeah, her county has the biggest disparities in suspension too. But that's neither here nor there. She might be somebody you might want to call in or get involved.
She blind?
No, she's white woman.
Very
Dance
few
is,
black
yeah,
superintendents.
Dance is African American male.
Dallas?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends on who you ask. I like him because
What
he's trying to
about
make things
Columbia?
happen. What, as far as hosting the conference?
No, Columbia. The system.
Howard County, you mean District of Columbia? That's Kai Henderson. She is, she's been in DC for a while after, what's her name, Michelle Reed left.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
But nothing
Was she
is-
the assistant under her?
She was,
Yeah.
Okay.
but DC hasn't seen a lot of growth it's seen growth of charters, but not necessarily growth in performance. So, if I were attacking, yes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, the DC is,
So can I ask a
they don't
question?
really have the leadership that they used to have.
Yes.
So
Who
just,
is the senior superintendent there?
Who's
What's
Who's the senior superintendent? Who's been in the longest?
Actually, Kaya Henderson's probably been the longest.
Chancellor Kaya
Yes,
Henderson.
Chancellor Kaya. I'm sorry. Yes.
Does she have the respect from the other superintendents?
We say she got the people of power like her.
I would actually suggest Dance has
Who
got
has
the biggest
some
name.
respect?
I don't know that anybody does because everybody's new. Yeah, with the exception, Dance has been there for I think 3 or 4 years now.
Oh,
So
he's senior. Okay.
he's been there for 4 years. I mean, God only knows if he'll make it to 6 or 7.
Really?
Yes, is that
He's
the one?
young. He came from Houston.
That's Prince George's School?
No, he's in Baltimore County.
The guy who was in Baltimore County, who's now at Howard, he's still in the School of Education at
Who,
Howard.
Joe Harrison?
Joe Harrison.
Joe's a rough customer.
He's what now?
He's a rough customer.
And he used to be on this board.
Joe ain't one of them sunshiny kind of guys. He's pretty rough. But anyway, Ken, you gonna ask questions?
yeah, one of the things I was gonna just suggest is, the union person, like Marietta English.
Yeah, Marietta.
Marietta's right in Baltimore. She's the incoming president for the National Intellectual Educators. She's right there, and she's responsible
What did
for
she take?
the largest union in
When did she take charge?
this year.
November?
This year. So it is good, but see, the thing is, you have somebody who comes to this conference every year.
Every year, she don't miss.
She never
She does
misses,
not miss.
and she's,
The whole AFT team don't miss.
Yeah.
All in Washington, they all are there. They're on the front, you know, up front.
No, that's fine. The only question I have about Marietta is she doesn't have credibility outside of Baltimore City. That's just FYI.
But you can't come to the hometown and not give her.
No. I'm not saying you exclude her. I'm just saying if you want her to make a statement, again, I don't know outside of Baltimore City if she's gonna have any credibility.
but I wasn't looking at a statement.
Yeah.
What I was looking at for her is, you're talking about people that would have influence on bringing people to the
Mhm.
conference.
Yeah, okay, yeah, got it.
That's it. So
Yeah.
that's why,
That makes sense, yeah.
so, as far as her coming to speak,
Where is the mayor in all this?
She just announced it now.
She's not, I wouldn't,
She's not?
Yesterday, I think.
yeah, she did,
Really?
at 10 a.m. I wouldn't invite her. Well, you can invite her as a ceremonial thing, but you know what, I'm trying to think, will she be in office?
This is the young sister who was in
Oh, she's
there.
horrible.
The little pretty young girl.
She's not running yet?
No, thank God, no.
What's her name?
Stephanie Rollins, like,
How do you elect Roz?
horrible.
Really?
Yes, yeah, I'm not even getting.
Not good.
Nah.
water bottle in a minute.
The African American woman who's running for U.S. Senate.
Oh,
Donna
Donna Edwards.
Yeah, so Rawlings isn't running.
Yeah.
You can still invite her as a,
Raleigh.
yeah, Rocky. I think she'll still be in office. It depends on when the next election will be next November. So she'll still be in office, but I mean, she's not gonna be no draw because people gonna stand in the city. Like so bad people.
But people don't like anybody in that damn city.
Who do people like there?
The scariest part is it like Sheila Dixon.
Oh.
Sheila Dixon's the former mayor who got
Got
sent to jail because she stole
Gift
some
cards.
gift cards. Yeah,
Oh, we can put her on.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the children's gift cards.
Yeah, let me give it some thought about Baltimore.
That's
What about the congressman?
Elijah Cummings. You can invite Elijah. People like Elijah, even though his district was like, hey, you can certainly invite him. People like him.
What about the other congressman that used to be, what's his name? The top, what is his name? Mufune?
Kwasi and Nkrumah.
Kwasi, uh-huh.
Is he still around?
He's going to jail.
No, what?
No, I'm thinking.
No, you can
I'm
do
thinking
another
of Kwame
Kwame.
Kilpatrick.
Yeah, you can do another Kwame.
He going to jail.
He went back.
He gonna be in jail the rest of his life.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kwasi hasn't really been out there. I mean, he's
Something, but he hasn't really had that much.
Yeah. After all them lawsuits.
Who's Baltimore millionaire, Maryland millionaire?
What about the head of the
What about the
NAACP?
Sorry. Stop it.
I don't know that brother.
Poor Diana, she's saying, oh no, I already had Bill, now I got others who.
No, I don't have any problem with that.
No.
I think
Just some credibility.
And we appreciate
the
that.
whole credibility piece here.
We don't want,
There
we don't want
is
to
not
trouble.
anymore with the NAACP. And it's hard, when you see them at the head of something, people start running because they just don't want the affiliation. And it's very difficult, very, very difficult. But you're right, their headquarters is there, so they definitely need to be on the program.
Yeah, you can certainly invite him.
And they were the founders of this group.
Yeah, they don't need to be the headline.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah. I know that young man good at headline. But that's another story.
Put them in the chorus. There's a lady in Baltimore, the prosecuting attorney, I've seen her on CNN.
Marilyn Mosley.
Yes,
Mm.
no,
She's got the city loves her,
they
but
like her, okay.
I think her
Then she gonna be,
no, I don't.
The police.
She's not the police and
That's the.
it's divisive because they feel like she went after them, even though they were wrong as to that shoes.
However, if we're
But-
talking school to prison pipeline issues with school resource officers, I'd be interested to hear a prosecutor's viewpoint.
And in the area, people know who she, and they know.
Yeah, they certainly know who she
Do
is.
they respect her?
The people of Baltimore do respect her. If she ran for office today, she would win.
We have to always, when you go into a strange city, make sure you have people up front, the people.
Yeah, she said it, strange. Charles
But I lived in Baltimore for 20 years, and it is certainly different, I'm not gonna lie, but every city has its culture, and its values, its beliefs, and behaviors.
Be more,
They no charm, that's for sure.
be more.
No charm.
Well, I think we could, this is a start to develop a team, to develop people that we can at least get some endorsements from. And I've already talked with Marietta, Marietta is on board, and so is the whole AFT office, they're all on board. Joe Harris,
Randy, when you say the AFT office, does that mean Randy?
it means Randy. The lady who's on the phone, Sheila M. Strayman, our former president. She runs the AFT Charleston. She's their board president. And she and the Randy are.
Because that's always the leverage at NEA. That's a leverage point at NEA.
That is?
Because they don't ever want to be
Shown up.
Especially technically, relatively speaking, it's in their own, it's in their backyard.
Where is the NEA office?
DC.
DC?
16th Street.
Oh, okay. All right.
It was
So
right across the street.
they're both there together.
A&E.
From the AME church
Where? Which AME church?
on M Street.
Oh,
Metropolitan.
M Street.
Metropolitan.
Metropolitan. Okay, all right. Okay. Well, we need to get the NEA involved. We
So,
sure do.
yeah, when we get a little bit further along, so I can, because there's always lots of questions.
Oh, yeah.
But the leverage-
Like, I don't know what.
Oftentimes for NEA, when in doubt, that's the question I will ask. Well, is AFT gonna do that? If they say yeah, that's what I carry.
Yeah, AFT has been a financial supporter of ours for the last 5 years. And they, come to every conference they send in boxes and boxes of things for us to put into bags. There are always a table full of AFT people there, always.
Yeah, one of the challenges with like the differences in which will help. I think most people don't really understand the differences in the organization. I mean, most people don't, which is how it operates.
I don't.
Power, Randy decides, right? It just, there's no other, you don't need to add anything to that. Somebody who is important to her brings her something, she gets to decide. NEA's president, whoever it may be, they can make some, but it isn't as it's a little bit, it's about the democratic value.
Yeah, just vote.
And so you just include more voices. So that tends to make the process take a lot longer, drags things out. And usually what happens is by the time you get to the end point, you have missed
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Bureaucratic.
Yeah.
It's a balance, right? Because here we is that we have essentially a decision-making body that's roughly 8,000 people. That's what happens at our RA. In the summer, when we go to convention, there's 8 to 9, depending on the level of our membership. There's 10,000 people in the room voice voting. And what we're going to do?
How many?
It can be anywhere between, depending on our membership levels, it can be anywhere from 7 to 10,000 people.
What is it?
It's something to behold if you like democracy. But
It also slows
What
down.
is
What is the influence that Diane Ravitch has on the NEA?
what? And two, she's also her voice is respect. Well, her voice is respected in terms of what's happening to public education.
Didn't we have her on the show?
We've had Diane on the show. We've had her, and I've gone and met with her in Chicago, and she was at that Sunday with Randy and Lily. Was her name Lily? Yeah. And it was like 400 or 500 teachers from all over the country there. It was the Chicago Teachers Union that had the conference, and 14 black people in the home. There was me, Jetsu Brown, and others. And I kept saying, oh, the black teachers in Chicago. And they're,
Well, it's just like in our organization, we have councils. So we have the National Council of Urban Education Associations, right? So our large urban locals, which it isn't. It's really about large locals. So I want to. So when you show up, someone who, not knowing, if you show up to one of their conferences thinking that you are going to be in a room full of, and it's also because people don't understand what's happened to urban education, which is that many of the educators they don't live in the community. They drive from outside. So you show up when Judith. If you talk to Judith, ask Judith what she saw when she came. So this is all the presidents, local vice presidents from these various large locals. The only black people in the room were me, Judith, Dewana, another staff person, the local president from Trenton, and maybe 2 other people. And then we're talking about a room of 150 people.
And I don't know about y'all's experience with advancement, but I know my folks, like we had to fire advancement. They were helping us do some work with the code of conduct, and literally I had people emailing me, calling me, Robert, you need to run this, because at least the staff she had saying incendiary things at school, it was ugly. And yeah, it was ugly. Like, it was like, y'all just don't need to say nothing, I'll run it. And we actually were able to get the code through and all that jazz, but it was pretty contentious.
Since you all have done that work, I think there's been some softening that,
Yeah, it was,
because we went through that too,
Yeah.
in terms of the partnership, like,
Yeah.
look, I get it.
Yeah.
You're an advocate.
Yeah.
That's the language. But if you want to get your message across,
Yeah.
we're gonna need to start from a very different, like, we can build up to what we want to get to.
yeah, you
And we gotta start here.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
You can't come in here and tell people, they already know that.
yeah,
They've already heard that,
yeah,
that they're the worst, teachers are the worst people on the planet,
yeah,
and they're racist, and they don't like black people. They already know that part.
yeah.
So why don't we talk about what the solutions are, so we can get their attention, and then we can dig in on, what some of the the deep-seated issues are.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you start there, if you want to get in here, and I know why you want to get in here, because, to a lot of advocates, NEA is a dollar sign.
Mhm.
That's how they view it. Like, if
Wow.
so they typically, like, I'm clear about it. Like, typically when I meet people at conferences, like we were talking about last night, they don't have any interest in the issue that I may be working on.
Mm-hmm.
What they're thinking about is, if I can get in the door at NEA, we got 3 million members. Yeah. On the books, they got a lot of money.
How many does AFT have?
A million. And then they have, well, 1.5 million, but don't forget, damn near 1 million, 750,000 of them are ours. Well, we merged in New York, Minnesota, Florida.
Yeah, that worked AFT, right? In Florida.
So when they say they have 1 million and so members, you have to count that membership that's in the New York merger is a bit of a because we get like $0.25. Yeah. So like in terms of dues,
Yeah.
right? But Florida, Minnesota, now North Dakota,
Like 8 people there.
well, they got tons of money,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
right? The state does.
Oh, yeah.
From the oil. So
Yeah.
Minnesota, right? So in those states, so part of their membership is ours,
That's where the numbers coming from.
Yeah, yeah.
and they can say the same. Part of that 3 million is also theirs.
That's a good leverage point. Okay, so can you send me the states where y'all are elected?
It's Minnesota,
Yeah, you need that.
North Dakota, Florida,
North Dakota.
North Dakota. Yeah, that just happened last year.
No, because I'm here. So, New York,
Minnesota,
Michigan football comes on.
North Dakota, and Montana.
Oh, wait a minute. Can we read it already?
But you're not
But we also have local.
Midwestern places, are you?
We have merged locals. So Wichita is a merged local.
Wichita?
Uh-huh. You talk in the Midwest?
Yeah.
Midwest. Wisconsin has traditionally been ours.
What about Indiana? Why are they so quiet here?
Are they here? How about AFT?
No, AFT is in Gary,
Right, because they'll be where so part of the history of
but NEA is here in the city.
but part of the history in terms of the representation is
No.
that one of the reasons AFT has such a better connection with families of color is when when NEA was merging,
You'll know exactly
or attempting to merge, so many of their affiliates refused. And a lot of the white members dropped their membership, particularly in the South. So when you get, and also in the North. So in a lot of
Are
these
you talking
big,
about when they had black unions?
correct.
Black.
So a lot of,
When I started teaching, there was a black union.
ATA. So,
But we merged with the NEA
but here's it, so my understanding of the history is that a lot of these large locals, particularly where we were, the AFT refused to charter them if they did not accept black members. And so, when things started to split up, this is all over the country, right? It's particularly in the South and coming up north. That's why you have like Birmingham, Mobile, Jackson, Mississippi, in Florida, Miami-Dade, they're all AFT. Even though we're merged, you would never know it. When you go to Duval County, which is Jacksonville in Florida, they're led by a white woman, as the president. It's a, right? Those larger cities in those states are AFT because when locals were being chartered during those mergers and all those fights, AFT refused to charter locals that would not support black men, would not accept black men.
That is funny.
And what a lot of people don't do, I think, which is a downfall of the organization, is they're unwilling to acknowledge that. Like when I was in the Southeast region, I had a very difficult time in Florida, but Al's great. Al's a great guy.
I know Al.
And Al and I worked very closely
I took
together.
Al's job on the board. He was treasurer when I came in. And when I was elected treasurer in '92, I took Al's job.
We did for a very brief time. We were changing the narrative, which was not being able to play the two organizations off each other.
Right.
We're not going to talk about it like that, right? Let's tell, if you're going to bring up the history, make sure you are clear about the history, right? Make sure you understand how you
We always
actually
had
arrived at that
strong
point.
NEA representation on this board with Diane Austin,
Denise Austin.
Denise Austin, someone in Easton, that's her first name, and then Sheila and Al Tony. We've always had strong representation.
What was Al's
And we've even had meetings in the NEA offices over in the.
You all know the most.
We've all
Once you-
used our offices.
Yeah, I mean, having meetings in the building is just that.
Yeah, I always set that up and go over there and our meeting, it does stay like that, Howard. But, AFT offices, they are always there. They're the strong affiliate in Washington, D.C.
Because DC's there.
Oh, D.C.
Right. Yeah. And we have on paper these very, there's supposed to be no rate agreements in certain places, right? So DC is one of those places. So like I get calls all the time from DC educators, and while I don't have a problem sending them things, I have to explain to them, right? Like I can't come to your school because the local staff would think. Right, because they're engaged in organizing, that's their focus, and so if I show up, they're gonna think I'm trying to, because at the end of the day, we are a union, we are membership driven, and that is, so there is, right, there is that competition and that competitiveness
I
about.
think we can work with you a lot closer than we work with you.
Yeah, okay. I agree.
Okay, before y'all leave, let me show y'all one thing. I think this, Lynette back here, she's not back here. I haven't checked out yet, I don't know if they're charging me for another one.
They're not.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people that are there, my advertising, Norman in the morning, Lisa Delta. Okay. It's funny how something different from Minnesota. He was like, Dr. Anthony Muhammad is so great.
That's awesome.
Everybody.
I love that. I love that so much.
But you know, it's
That's so, exactly. Special.
Love it, yeah. All right. I love it. I love it up there too, but I love it down there a lot too. I love it. You can't go wrong. I've been there to stop it from get back a few times in Montreal. What do you want to do in Saskatoon? I had to speak out. Yeah, I spoke out there. Nobody can play that here. And here's the fun part. And you were what they were saying to me all the time. So, it's your first conversation. And what do you mean? I said, because our preference is the same.
Right.
It's alcohol. It's
Right.
all these things.
Yeah, the social element.
No, so y'all know it ain't black people. So that means the native population is.
Is different, that's right, you're so right.
But that's what you see there.
Yes, exactly, and that is exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, one of the best running backs in the NFL came from Saskatchewan.
Really?
Played it for played for the Orleans.
Really?
Orleans franchise. And for that, yeah, let's just speak of, let's talk about that.
That was
They just had the nation divided.
You see the nation, 60,000 people. Population outside of Labor.
In Canada? I did not know that. I put on my social, I didn't know that. She was from Florida.
Yeah, we got some good ones up there. I took my daughter. Like I said, we worked on that. We went up there. It was cool because it's so kind. But there was certain, we got some good players.
What are you doing here?
Yeah, what are you doing here? And what are you leaving?
Especially for that.
Yeah.
Bill, I will see you. Hopefully in January, in Houston. That'd be great. Exactly. I'm really great. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for taking those shoes back to the hotel. Oh yeah, that's right. Did you like playing my ball?
Oh, she football.
And I was waiting for
All right, bro. We gonna see you to the airport. So
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
move on. I'm gonna
Yeah.
see if I can catch a ride with y'all.
Yeah. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna come? You're gonna go with them?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're.
Well, I got my bag. I just left my bag at the hotel. I checked it out. So they told me I couldn't.
I will remember that in April at the conference. Thank you. I remember that. Yell at me.
What's she saying? She's just talking.
I am not just talking.
You tell us when you
Airport. You did. You said I'm gonna catch. No, today you said I'm trying to catch a ride to the airport. Did you want to get on it earlier?
This morning I did say that. I said that yesterday.
You said it.
And then when you and I were sitting here, I said I
You gonna
called.
take that for you? Yeah.
No, but my bag went home.
Oh, you didn't bring your bags.
Because I travel heavy.
Right. You have to go to Denver.
Well, and also I like options.
Right.
I like options.
We will definitely see
You
you.
have to have separate things. I travel.
All right. I think. Y'all know what
Board members' office is always open. Anytime you want to come through. We'd love to have you. I would take a student to the airport, right?
He's not going. He's going.
Here the hotel. I could do it something. Check out? Yeah, check out. So you here 2:30. So when she gets back, we go to there. Okay,
No problem. Yeah.
so she should be on.
Well, somebody just want to rock you up. You can go if you need to. I'm fine. I just see Mr. Football. That's my only guy. That's my only guy. No, he said you can only do three. I'm a big dude now. I don't want to be all like I'm a clown sitting in the car, like I'm got kung fu going on or something. Yeah.
Let me get my.
All right. All right, that's fine. See you there. We good.
Well, thanks for having us. One. One is like check out. Yeah, I think we started.
Enjoy. Okay. You want to hang out with me, James?
Football, and you should take your money. You go shopping. Look, you get it. It's football season, right? And this feels like, no one happened. This is like guys who still getting on.
Okay, I'll take you back. You need to go. Don't.
Right, so what is on that?
833-4311. And let's see what she is. What's the, okay, I'll put them there.
Oh.
That's what I figured.
She said that's what she figured. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, I found your lineup, everything.
Oh, okay. I'll take you back.
I'm not certain that's right. And I'd like to do it with.
Yeah, who was the first? Who was the first?